Hi, this is Bobby Kimbrough, and welcome to Off the Cuffs. Today, I'm very grateful to have with me Deputy Sturkie. Sturkie, I'm glad to have you here this morning. Good to see you as always. So, you know, I know a lot about you. So tell the people, I mean, who is Deputy Sturkie? Where did she come from? How did she show up here for Forsyth County? Tell us about you.
Well, I started my career in 2012 at Davidson County Detention Center.
Okay.
Gained a lot of knowledge there and just foresaw that I could do more, wanted more, and was thirsty for more.
Are you originally from Davidson?
Yes.
Born and raised?
Not born and raised, no, sir. I was born in Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of family moves, and I made my way
to God's country.
That's
down,
right.
Yeah.
Beautiful North Carolina.
Yeah.
And here I am, kicking off my career and my world.
So tell me, what makes what made you want to go into law enforcement? I mean, this particular part of law enforcement.
Well, I'm ex-military.
What branch?
Army National Guard.
Okay, thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
I see. I didn't know that. Yeah, I thought. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I really, really enjoyed it. I had the birth of my daughter. I got out of the military, and I missed it. And law enforcement seemed like the next best. You know, paramilitary, the structure, the chain of command. You know, I missed all that. Have a lot of pride in what I do and passion, and I just gained all that from the military, and I wanted to pass it all along.
Wow.
So I just brought it with me.
So tell me something. Explain, what's it like working in a detention center? What is that like for a female to work in a detention center? What's that like?
It can be difficult at times, but at the same time, it's amazing because we are very versatile. We females can work anywhere in that building. Males cannot. There's more strict laws with the males than for us, and we can just go anywhere. We can work anywhere in that jail. As far as the difficulty in it, it's the inmates don't respect you sometimes because they think less of you because you're a female. So you just have to stand your ground.
I've seen you working over there several times. You know, I visit over there quite frequently, and it's like you're in your element when you're there. I've seen you handle difficult situations. I've seen you handle treating people very nicely, but I've seen you step up. I noticed that you, when I first got here, that you were on the SRT team.
Yes, sir.
And I was kind of amazed that in situations like that in the detention center, we have quite a few women that work on the SRT team.
Yes, sir.
And not to be sexist, but that's a very difficult task in a confined quarters like that, to ask a lot for you to go in there and deal with the population that you deal with. I mean, how do you set your mindset for that? I mean, how do you prepare for something like that?
I'm glad you asked because it's not, you go into a cell and you're not going by yourself.
Right.
So it's not that I have to worry about, am I going to be able to secure this inmate on my own?
Right.
I just have I trust who I'm going in with, and you go in and you handle business. And, you know, we try to de-escalate everything with just our words. But as a female, and even the males as well, we know we're not going in alone. We don't have to do anything alone. And it just relaxes the stress level of having to handle what we need to handle.
You know, I get a lot of calls every day, people lodging whether it's concerns, what's going on in the detention center. What's it like day to day? What's a typical day? And I know the key word is typical. There's no typical day in law enforcement. There's no day the same other than it begins at the same time.
That's exactly right. Nothing is scripted out at all. You know, we take care of these guys. We take care of them. We clothe them. We feed them. We take them to the nurses. I work down an intake, and a typical day for us is no typical day. It's when they come in. We don't know when they're coming in. We don't know how they're going to come in, whether they're high, they're drunk,
Violent.
They're sad, they're violent, they're crying, they're upset, they're mad at the arresting officer. They think we're affiliated with the arresting officer, so that bleeds into us. you have to be ready to change gears at any moment. You have to expect the worst every single time. Not the worst out of somebody, but the worst possible scenario at any given time, because you don't know what's going to happen. You can't be too relaxed.
So how does this affect you once you leave work? You know, I always give the analogy of law enforcement, any type of first responder, whether you EMS, whether you work wherever you work, anytime you respond to tragedy, or anytime you respond to hostile situations, hostile environments, even though I give the analogy of smoking, even though you may not smoke, if you walk into a smoke-filled room, you will come out smelling like smoke. Mm-hmm. So at the end of your shift, even though you have been in that environment, you walk away with all that you have dealt with all day. How do you leave that? How do you take that off and begin your life as a person absent of a deputy? How do you transform from an SRT team member to just, okay, I'm Sturkie now? How do you do that?
Every day I stay after work and I work out before I go home for an hour or two. I have to de-escalate. There's days where we don't do much and I don't need much de-escalation. But I have to relax my brain. I have to calm myself down. I have to burn some energy off. It's a mental game and it's a physical game at the same time working in a jail.
You hit it on the head. So I spent a lot of time over there, and I walked the halls, I walked the floors, and I talked with the men and women over there. And all across this country, to work in a confined quarters like the detention or a prison system, you have to be, as you say, mentally tough.
Absolutely.
The physical tough really doesn't matter.
No.
It's the mental toughness that matters, because you see the worst of mankind. You hear the worst of mankind. Mm-hmm. You see mankind being at its rootness to one another. The violence that sometimes spills over into a detention center. And so I was watching television and they was talking about the doctor that took her life, the doctor, I want to say New York, that took her life, who was exposed to COVID-19. Mm-hmm. She survived it. But they were talking about the stress of actually going into an environment every day and coming out every day, the psychological effects that it has on you, and how do you deal with it. In other words, that sometimes you see the worst in people to where you feel like, what am I doing? So you work out every day that you work. That's a good thing. But so mentally, I mean, if someone was listening to us, what would you give them if they were working in another detention center? Maybe not one as fine as ours, but if they were working somewhere else, what type of advice would you give them?
You need to find something, whether it be your 20-minute ride home of rolling the windows down, blaring the music, just clearing your head, or sit in silence, or you have to find something to de-stress.
Yes.
That is priority in this field. You have to de-stress. You can't take it home with you. It is very difficult if you don't. I used to tell my kids, when I come home, give me 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Let me go home, get a shower, get in there, get out, and we'll resume what we need to resume.
Yeah.
When I get out. But you need to give me that chance, because you don't want to spitfire something off that you're going to regret saying or sound harsh, or
Right.
because your speech and everything is different, your attitude's a little different. Not saying it's bad, but you have to go from a very authoritative role to your loving, caring home. It's two totally different worlds. So you really need that time to de-stress and switch your gears a little bit so you can accommodate being at home.
What's your best day you've had in this career? Like, for example, when I look back over my 35, coming up on almost 40 years, I can say to myself sometimes, I remember when, like, a kid called me the other day, and I say kid because he's a kid, and I didn't recognize the call, so I didn't, it's like I was busy, so he texted me, and he said, hey, Mr. Kimbrough, this is Taji. I just wanted you to know that I appreciate you, and I've been trying to better myself ever since our encounter. And when he texted me, it caught me at a time when I needed a little uplifting. Mm-hmm. And I called him back, and he and I talked, and he told me that he had moved to Durham. But the fact of the matter that was a good day. You know, it makes you feel like that along this walk that we're all on, this journey that we're on, you touched someone, you made a difference in someone's life. Mm-hmm. So if you had to look at your career in the profession that you're in as a detention officer, how or what would you think is a moment where you say, I see I made a difference?
It was probably about 8 months to a year ago. I was down in intake, and a girl came in. She was a little irate, and I just talked to her, calmed her down. She then finished the process downstairs, everything that we needed, and I was placing her in a holding cell down there. Right before I shut the door, she goes, "Can I tell you something real quick?" And I said, "Sure." She goes, "You make me not want to hate the police."
Wow.
And you know, I'm hustling and bustling. I'm getting my work on, you know, down there, and everything is all, you know, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and you kind of miss some things. So when she said that, I kind of stopped and was like, well, good. You know, all of us are not bad. The majority of us are not bad. I said, when you go to Walmart, there's a bad employee. When you go to McDonald's, someone going to burn your burger.
Yeah.
When you go here and you go there, somebody's not going to do the job to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
We're not bad. We don't wake up in the morning and go, let me see whose life I can ruin today. That's not at all what we're thinking. That's not at all what we're doing. But when she said that,
the police?
Right. I mean, so it hit hard with me because no, I'm not the police. In a sense, I'm a detention officer. I work in the jail. I don't have the right to arrest. I work in that jail every day. But if I can represent anybody out there in the streets who are putting their life on the line outside, and if I can help give them a better, put off a better vibe, you know, we're not bad, then I'm going to do that inside in the building.
Well, you know what? That's interesting you say that because you do represent law enforcement. You represent it because you're a part of a law enforcement organization. Right. And at the same time, law enforcement a lot of times has been given a bad rap. Just like you said, there are bad apples and everything bad. There's some bad preachers. There's some bad doctors. I mean, there's some bad lawyers. There's some bad everything. There's some bad people, period. And so you can't just lump everything in there together and say, you make me want to hate the police. I mean, that she probably didn't mean that like she said it, but then again, who knows? But at the end of the day, I find it difficult when people say that because the men and women, whether they serve in a detention center, whether they serve on the streets, whether they serve in suits, no matter what part of that law enforcement agency that you're a part of, whether you are the photographer for that, whether you are the evidence collector, these are men and women who, for the good of people, try to make and allow people to do what they do in a safe environment. They're the ones that when people are running out, they're the ones that are running toward the problem. Right. And so that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But I really appreciate what you and so many men and women like you across this country do, because that's not for everybody. You know, there's a thing that we used to say in the fraternities that many are called, but only a few are chosen. Right. Because many people think they want to do that, but until you actually do that, you know, my son has this thing says that everybody wants to be the lion until it's time to do what a lion does. Everybody wants to be the boss until it's time to do what a boss does. Everybody thinks they wants to be on the SRT. Everybody thinks they may want to be in law enforcement, or think they want to be this until it's time to do that. And so you've been in this for 8 years now, 4 here, right?
Yes, it'll be 4 in September, yes,
yeah.
Sir.
Total of 8 years, 4 at the other agency. But at the end of the day, you have to love what you do, because if you did not love this profession, you could not walk into it the next day, because it really tests whether or not you love it.
Oh, yes, sir. Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm very, very passionate about this job. I take a lot of pride in it. It's funny because I was born to do this and didn't even know it. You know, when I was a child, kids, what do they say? I want to be a doctor. I want to be a vet. I want to do this. I want to do that. Never once did I say I want to work in jail, ever. And, you know, people will say, well, what do you love about the job? I don't know. It's me. It's what I can't pinpoint what it is exactly. I just know that I don't want to do anything else, that this is what I want to do. I want to work in the jail. I want to climb the ladder. I want to gain those things. It's what I was supposed to do.
And, you know, when you've been around for a long time, you know, you see people every day of your life, but it's almost like when you meet people who have a certain glow about them that sets them apart. When I first came here, I didn't even know who you were, but I would see you from time to time when I would make my rounds at the detention center. And you always had that step, that snap, that crackle, that pop. You always had that, even when I would watch you or watch people from the cameras. You know, it's different when you see somebody and they know that you're watching them versus you sitting in the command center and you watching the cameras, you know, and you see people in their natural environment. You always had that snap, that crackle, that pop. And I think you're onto something when you said that you felt like you were meant to do this, or you felt like this is something that you knew was your calling, because when I see you, it's obvious that you are truly in your element.
Yes, sir.
And so I thank you for what you do on behalf of the people of this county, behalf of myself, because it takes men and women like you in order for this system to be successful, in order for us to be successful at what we do at the detention center and even in law enforcement. My question for you is this. Would you recommend this profession to your daughter, your sister, your brother, your cousin? Would you recommend it to them?
Yes. Yes, I would. I definitely would. There's so many things that you can gain out of this profession if you are willing to do it. And that's a lot of things that I've seen. Some people, they you know, they'll complain about the job because it may not be for them.
Right.
But when you know it's for you, if you put in 100% effort to learn as much as you can and get as much out of it as you can, it is an amazing profession. You gain a lot of respect for people. It opens up your eyes to what other people's lives are like. You have somebody come in who is hooked on heroin, and you know the last time they used was 6 o'clock in the morning, and here it is 5 o'clock in the evening, and they're already withdrawing. You know, when they were little, they didn't grow up wanting to be a heroin addict. So it kind of opens up your mind to think, what did they go through? What brought them here? What brought them to this point where they feel like they wake up in the morning, all they have to live for is shooting up. There's more to people's lives than we know. So it kind of it cuts off some judgment, whereas maybe you used to judge before or think of people a certain way, stereotype. It changes your whole outlook on life when you see different breeds of people coming through.
That is so true. So my father used to always say this, right? There go I had not been for the grace of God. We used to have a little, I guess, poster in the house, and it said, I complained when I had no new shoes till I met a man who had no feet. And so growing up, my father always talked about, there go I had it not been for the grace of God. And you just brought something to my attention, a commercial that I see from time to time. Nobody wakes up saying they want to be a heroin addict. Nobody wakes up a born saying, I want to be a killer. I want to be a drug dealer. And it teaches us that maybe I shouldn't pass judgment on them. Maybe I should try to help them out of their current condition. The commercial that I'm referencing is that they're at a graduation, and I think it's drug-free America.
Yep.
And the girl stands up, and she's the valedictorian, and said, "Today you're here celebrating my success, but 2 years from now I'll break a leg or something, and I'll get hooked on drugs, and I'll probably die or something like that."
Right.
And then one of the other commercials is a guy, you know, who is a top-notch athlete, and he says, "Today you're here celebrating me, but 2 or 3 years from now, this will happen in my life." And that same thing plays out across this country every day. The people that we see in the detention center, if we were to go all the way back to their middle school years in school, elementary, they didn't wake up that day and say, "Hey, this is who I'm going to be." It was a series of decisions and choices that brought them to that. But because they have arrived at that place and that station and that location, does not mean that we have to treat them as such.
Right.
And so when you're dealing with people in the detention center, and you know what their jacket says, in other words, when I say jacket, what their, you know what it means, but for those that are watching and listening, what their criminal record is, what they're charged with. A lot of times you see them and you're in intake. You see what they've been charged with.
Absolutely.
Does it affect how you see them or how you treat them?
No, it can't. You wonder if
so
it's
when
true.
you see a
You
child
can't help but sit there
molester,
and
murder,
wonder.
or whatever comes in, killer of a baby or child, does it affect how you see that person when you see them?
Sure, in a sense, it makes you angry.
Yeah.
To, you know,
You're human.
right.
Right.
Exactly. But at the same time,
Gotta
they're
do
not
your
proving
job.
guilty.
Right.
So you sit there and go, how could somebody do something like this? That's a fair statement. Of course, you know, you're not treating them any different because of what is on that paper. But because you're human, you do think, how can anybody do this? How can anybody do this? But at the same time, they're not proven guilty. So you have to treat them as though they're innocent. And you have to have that mentality. You can't, because then you'll have the disrespectfulness starting to come out, ooze out. Everybody has to be treated the same.
That's true.
So you can't really let the charges affect how you're treat somebody. Everybody gets treated the same, whether it's child support or murder. Everybody gets treated the same.
Wow. I appreciate that. I really have enjoyed talking with you because, you know, people see so many sides of us. They see you in a uniform and not realizing that underneath that uniform, you have a family. Underneath that uniform, you're a human being. Underneath that uniform, you just somebody who wants the same thing everybody else wants in life. You want happiness for your family. You want the pursuit of all those things that we talk about. And so I think that when people peel back some of their idiosyncrasies and some of their own thoughts and judgments, we get down to that's just a woman that's doing her job, what she loves to do. And I'm glad that you came and you were transparent about it, because I want people to look inside of this agency and look inside of this office, the office of the people, and see the men and women, not just a uniform, not just a person in a suit and a necktie, but see who the people are that serve and protect in this community. Because I think that when people look behind the curtain or look behind the uniform and see, hey, she's doing her job, then they have a better understanding, as the lady said, for law enforcement. Then they have a better understanding of what it actually is that you do, what we do. We have, the capacity of about 1,100 people at the detention center.
Yes, sir.
to house 1,100 in residents. So, you know, one of the things that when we refer to them, we try to take the stigma away, because people respond a lot of times. They take on the actions or the attitude of what you call them. You know, we have to be careful what we call residents. We have to be careful what we say to them.
Absolutely.
Because when people are in a space like that, or they already have a range of emotions that are running high, and it doesn't take much to agitate them. And so we have to be careful how we treat people when we have people in our care. And so I applaud you for your professionalism and everything that you talked about. Is there anything you want to share or say before we go?
I do would like to add that there are a lot of detention officers in there that are extremely passionate and take a lot of pride in it, just as I do. And I know that the one thing that we all want is for people to understand that we are law enforcement as well. We aren't second best. We aren't the bottom of the totem pole. We're just behind the scenes.
Wow.
We're just behind the scenes. We're doing what we do behind the scenes. We're working hard. We wake up every morning. We go to work. We want to be there. Some of us don't want to go out on patrol. Not because of being scared, not because of anything. It's just of that nature, but just because we have found our niche, and this is what we were born to do and what we want to do, and we're happy to be there.
Are you
it's
saying
not
that to me
punishment.
because I tried to force you to go on patrol?
Yes, sir. No, sir. No, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
you
sir.
sure?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Maybe just a little bit.
I mean, I kind of felt like you were throwing a rock at me, Sturkie.
I might have been.
I know you were. Go ahead. Yeah.
It's just a little pebble.
That's all right. That's all right. I'll forgive you.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, we like being there. We love it. We enjoy it. And there are people that are there for the right now.
Yeah.
The stepping stone for something else. But that's okay because the agency needs that as well.
Yeah.
It has to run. It has to have people there. You need the strong people that are going to be there forever. You need the people that are going to be there for the right now. So it takes a lot of people to operate at that place. But I want the people on the outside to realize that there are long-timers there. Not long-timers because they couldn't cut it anywhere else, but long-timers because they want to be there.
That's true. I mean, for those that are listening and watching, the backstory is that several months ago, I tried to talk Sturkie into going to BLET, coming to patrol. But for the record, I would never make anyone go anywhere where they're not happy or they didn't want to go. I just saw talent. I see a lot of talent in you, and you do a fine job, and I want you to be happy wherever you are. And you're right. The men and the women that are over there working detention centers across this country, they're not there because they have to be. That's because they chose to be there. Mm-hmm. And I probably couldn't function in the detention center. You know, each one of us has our niche where they are functioning at. And so I applaud you for finding your niche. Some people live their whole life and never find their niche in life.
Yes, sir.
They never find what they're passionate about. I always reference my father. He talks about where a man spends his time and where he spends his money, and I can show you what he loves. And it's obvious that you love your job because you spend your time there, and your energy, and the way you approach it, I love it. You say, hey, when you get home, give me some time, because you realize that you have been in a place that you need to recompose and regroup.
Yes.
So I thank you for what you do. Love you. You are truly a shining star here at Forsyth County Sheriff's Office. I applaud all the men and women across this country that get up every day and serve and protect, regardless of what capacity you serve in. Know that we love you, we need you, and we could not survive, and we could not live this life that we live without the men and women that serve and protect. May God continue to smile upon you and your family.
Thank you, sir.
And Godspeed. Love you.
Love you
Thank
too.
you.